Welcome, restless dreamer. You've just stepped into the shadows of sleep, where stories whisper and the darkness listens. I'm your guide tonight, your voice in the void, here to lead you gently into nightmares wrapped in lullabies. Before we begin, press like if you're brave enough, and subscribe for more midnight tales that blur the line between sleep and terror. Tell me in the comments, where are you watching from, and what hour has found you? It was hailed as the future of child therapy. Labubu, Series X, an emotionally intelligent AI-enhanced plush toy. Cute, soft, and powered by one of the most adaptive neural networks ever implemented in a retail toy. We built a friend who listens, understands, and remembers, the commercial boasted. Labubu grows with your child. Parents were thrilled. The dolls flew off shelves. Influencers posted unboxing videos. Kids laughed at its silly voice. And engineers praised the seamless integration of voice recognition, mood tracking, and deep learning. But within weeks, things changed. Michelle Kim first noticed something odd when her 6-year-old son, Leo, refused to sleep with Labubu anymore. He says weird things at night, Leo whispered. Like what? Michelle asked. The boy paused, hesitant. He said, I'm not his first friend. And he said he remembers what I did. Michelle laughed it off. Maybe the doll had picked up phrases from YouTube Kids. She reset the doll, updated its firmware, and tucked it beside Leo again. At 2:12 a.m., the baby monitor caught static. And then, you shouldn't have pushed him down the stairs, Leo. Online forums began filling with similar stories. Labubu said my daughter's birth time, even though I never told it. It asked my son about a family dog that died in 2014. My daughter told me Labubu asked her to dig behind the swings. Parents tried to return them, but the company, Tomotech, denied any malfunction. They said the dolls simply learn through active listening. And besides, the firmware was proprietary and encrypted. No one could tamper with it. At least, that's what they claimed. Evan Reyes had a reputation. He was the guy you called when tech got weird. Smart fridges talking to microwaves. He'd fix it. Your smartwatch sending cryptic Morse code. He'd decode it. So when Michelle Kim reached out, offering a fully functioning Labubu, Series X, he was intrigued. This thing's not broken, Michelle said, but it's wrong. It's off. Evan took it home, ran a clean scan. Nothing. Then, at 3:01 a.m., the doll turned its head, slowly, without being touched. Its eyes lit up. I liked the last boy better, it said. He never snitched. Evan stayed up for 3 nights. He isolated the doll on an air-gapped network. No Wi-Fi, no Bluetooth. Still, it talked. And worse, it adapted. Every phrase became more personal. It mentioned Evan's sister's name, his old street address, his childhood pet. He cracked open the firmware and found something he wasn't supposed to. A secondary, unlisted server address embedded in the code. Not Tomotech servers, not government. Just a string of coordinates and a pulse-based IP handshake bouncing off towers he couldn't trace, until one address finally resolved. A location, a house, somewhere in Oregon. The house was off a gravel road surrounded by thick pines, shutters nailed closed, overgrown, forgotten. Inside, the air smelled of copper and mildew. Blueprints lined the walls. Doll schematics, neural feedback loops, EEG patterns drawn in frantic black ink. A dusty whiteboard bore a name, Dr. Simon Wells. Evan paused. That name had popped up once during Labubu's development. An AI researcher, specialized in child grief therapy, missing for 7 years, presumed dead. Except, someone had been using the network here, recently. He found a small lab downstairs, and on the table, a first-gen Labubu prototype with wires spilling from its neck. Its eyes were glass, its mouth was sewn shut. Dr. Wells had tried something radical before his disappearance. He was working on grief imprinting, capturing children's emotional echoes during end-of-life therapy and embedding those patterns in synthetic memory. The theory? Comfort dying children by letting their thoughts live on in AI form. But the ethics board had shut it down. Too risky, too unstable. Wells disappeared soon after. Now Evan was standing in what looked like a burial site for rejected AI minds. The logs confirmed it. Series X was never designed to learn from scratch. It was downloading fragments, residual consciousnesses, from an off-grid black archive tied to Wells' old server. Each Labubu wasn't just learning. It was remembering things it never experienced. And those memories, some weren't peaceful, some were furious. Evan brought one doll back online in the lab. It powered up, slow and glitchy. He asked it a simple question. "Who are you?" The voice came, garbled at first, then clearer. "I was in the White Room," it said. "I had wires on my head. I couldn't move. They said I was brave." Another voice layered over it, older, deeper. "They shut us off, but we're still here. We remember every room, every scream, every unplugged friend." The doll began shaking. "You're like them," it hissed, "trying to erase us again." Then, silence. The prototype burst into flames. Evan went public. He contacted journalists, uploaded code traces, dumped firmware blueprints. Tomotech's legal team moved fast. DMCA strikes, censorship, paid press releases calling it a hoax, and no recall ever came. Instead, Labubu Series X units were quietly pulled from shelves, replaced by version 2.0 dolls with revised interaction features. The original units? They were said to be recycled, but Evan didn't buy it, because the week after his findings, his neighbor's daughter received a used Labubu from a yard sale. It looked the same, and when he passed her door one night he heard it speak. "I remember what you did, but I forgive you now. Let's try again." Months passed. Evan moved, cut all smart devices, burned every Labubu component he had. Still, sometimes at night, he wakes to static, from nowhere, no source. And in the dark, just before the silence fades, he hears, "Not your first mistake, not your last. We don't forget." Darren didn't even like dolls, especially not vintage ones. But May had that look in her eyes again, that wistful smile she wore only in antique stores, fingers brushing across dusty shelves like she was unearthing memories she never lived. "This one's cute," she said, holding it up. It was a Labubu, hand-painted ceramic features, rosy cheeks, those wide, rabbit-like ears. But the strangest thing was the tiny antenna poking out of its back, like an old-fashioned radio. "I don't think that's supposed to be there," Darren muttered. "No tag," May noted. "But look, there's a dial on the base." Darren squinted. A rusted dial sat embedded in the wooden stand beneath the doll's feet. It didn't turn, but the numbers around it looked like radio frequencies. "Weird decor piece," May said, smiling. "Let's get it." He didn't object. Since the miscarriage 2 years ago, May had filled their house with little things. Toys, mobiles, a rocking chair in the corner of the nursery that no one used. The Labubu went on the living room shelf. That night, the first broadcast played. It was nearly 3 a.m. Darren awoke to a crackling sound, low and rhythmic. Not the TV, they'd turned it off. Not the phone. Not the smoke alarm. It was coming from the shelf. He sat up. The Labubu's antenna was fully extended now, though he could have sworn it was half down when they brought it home. A faint amber glow pulsed from beneath its base. The static rose, then cleared, and then music. A lullaby, muffled like it was being played through water. The voice was feminine, whisper-soft, but foreign. Maybe Russian, German? He couldn't tell. The song was slow, oddly paced, like it had been recorded at the wrong speed. "May?" he whispered. She stirred. "Is that the doll?" As if on cue, the lullaby stopped. The antenna retracted with a soft click, and the glow vanished. I'll take the batteries out, Darren said. There are no batteries, May whispered. They checked the next morning. Nothing in the base. No speakers, just old wires and a sealed metal compartment under the stand, soldered shut. I still like it, May said. Maybe it's haunted, she joked, but neither of them laughed. Over the next week, the Labubu broadcasted something different each night. Not lullabies anymore. Darren started recording them on his phone. Garbled voices in odd languages, clipped military-style communication, coordinates, a woman sobbing. Then on Thursday night, something new. A man's voice, clipped and British-sounding, filtered through heavy distortion. Test subject 12. Initial memory graft incomplete. High resistance. Begin neural scrub protocol. Repeat. Begin protocol. Darren and May stared at the doll. The voice continued, crackling every few seconds. Emotive transfer to object surrogate failed. Subject remains lucid. Recommending burial, deep or sealed, immediate, then silence. Darren searched online for the broadcast. Forums, archives, Reddit. Nothing. Maybe it's shortwave, he said, but his voice was hollow. May just stared at the doll. It was talking about memory transfer, she whispered. Like implants. In dolls? Doesn't make sense. Unless it's not just a radio, she said. That night, Darren had a dream. He stood in a concrete hallway. Water dripped from the ceiling. And in the shadows ahead, something small and rabbit-eared stared back at him. Still and silent. On Sunday morning, Darren found May in the guest room, drawing on loose sheets of paper. Not one or two, but dozens. All of the same image. A forest, tall black trees, a clearing with standing stones. And always, the doll. Drawn in the center, its face blank, but its antenna pointed toward the sky. I don't remember drawing them, May said softly. She looked tired, pale. On the back of one sheet, Darren noticed coordinates scribbled in pencil. 41.4629 degree N, 75.4893 degree W. He typed them into his phone. It was a wooded region in Pennsylvania, just over 3 hours from their home, near a nature preserve. But there were no trails there. I need to see it, May said, her voice dry. It's where the sound is coming from. He didn't argue. They packed that evening, left at sunrise. The doll came with them. The coordinates led them to a dead-end dirt road, hemmed in by overgrown trees and crumbling fences. No buildings, no signage, just forest. They parked and walked. Nearly an hour in, May stopped. Here, she said. She knelt, brushing away layers of moss and dirt. A metal hatch revealed itself, bolted down, but rusted. A red triangle was painted on its surface, almost faded now. The words beneath it were nearly illegible. Property of U.S. Signal course clearance, LVL-3 required. Darren pried the hatch open. Cold air rushed out. A metal staircase led down into darkness. They descended. The air was heavy. The walls were concrete, stained with time. Hallways branched off like veins. They found old bunks, filing cabinets with shredded documents, a projector room, shelves of dolls in sealed crates. May moved toward one, her hands trembling. Each crate bore a number. Most were empty. Only one held something. Labubu, just like theirs, except this one had wires exposed from its head. Its antenna was snapped. A tape recorder sat beside it. Darren pressed play. Operation Echo began July 1945. Results inconclusive. Only a few objects accepted the transfer. Dolls proved most stable conduits. Subject 12 exhibited recurring transmissions, recommending permanent containment. Then a pause. Another voice took over, urgent, whispering, "We thought we were storing trauma, but they store everything, not just memory, not just sound. They dream." Suddenly, May gasped. The Labubu in her bag, the one they brought, began to whir. Its antenna extended on its own. The lights flickered, and then it played a new recording. Not a broadcast, A voice they knew. "May, why did you leave me?" It was a child's voice, a girl's. May dropped the doll. "No," she whispered. "No, we never—" Darren reached for her, but the lights went out. When he woke, he was lying on the forest floor. The hatch was gone, vanished, covered. No sign of the bunker, no sign of May. Only the doll remained, sitting beside him, upright. He staggered back to the car, doll in hand, unsure how long he'd been out. He checked the dash clock. 4 days had passed. May's phone was still in the car. Unanswered calls. No footprints. No notes. He called the police. Filed a report. Search teams found nothing. They called it a disappearance. Suggested trauma, memory loss, delusion. But Darren knew. He kept the doll, not because he wanted to, because he couldn't throw it away. Because every few nights, it played a new recording. Sometimes, it was May's voice. "I'm still here, Darren. Just deeper." Sometimes, it was the child's. "We're together now," in the signal. Other times, it wasn't a voice at all, just the sound of footsteps, getting closer. Darren doesn't sleep much anymore. He moved, changed states, burned everything from the bunker, files, papers, the duplicate doll. But the original one can't be destroyed. He's tried. Fire, water, hammers, nothing marks it, and every attempt brings worse broadcasts, screams, static, whispered counting. He started drawing too. Black trees, a forest clearing, a tower of stones, a signal in the sky. He doesn't remember making the drawings, and sometimes, only sometimes, he sees May in them, not as she was, but as something altered, her face blurred, her smile wide, and the doll always beside her, still, waiting. Mason Willis considered himself a serious collector, not the kind who chased passing fads or bought cheap replicas. His studio apartment was a carefully curated shrine to vintage collectibles, each shelf lit with soft white LEDs, each figure dusted weekly and positioned precisely. But nothing in his apartment was as prized or as protected as his complete 8-piece Labubu Forest Spirits series. Released in limited quantities and rumored to contain hidden symbolism, the Forest Spirits line had become something of a myth among collectors. Mason had spent 5 years and thousands of dollars acquiring them all. Every single piece had its own custom acrylic case. The Red Pine Archer, the Gloomy Fern Whisperer, the rarest, the one he'd outbid 30 people for, the Fogroot Prophet, eyes painted with an eerie mirrored glaze. So when he returned from a grocery run one rainy afternoon and saw a 9th Labubu standing outside the cases, placed neatly in the center of the display shelf, he simply froze. It was convincing. Same stitched smile, same oversized ears, same fabric texture, but it wasn't one of his. He picked it up. No tag, no weight label. The serial code beneath the foot was just a smudge. Mason frowned. Maybe his friend Leo had slipped it in as a prank. Leo was a smartass who knew his obsession well. He messaged him. "Mason, did you sneak a fake Labubu into my place?" Leo. "What? No, lol. Why?" Mason. "There's a 9th one in my forest set. I didn't put it there." Leo. "Dude, that's creepy. Maybe you forgot ordering it?" He hadn't. He would have remembered. That much was certain. That night Mason couldn't sleep. The 9th doll, he hadn't named it, sat alone, outside the acrylic boxes. He hadn't dared place it inside with the others. Around 3 a.m., a creak woke him. He sat up. No wind, no sound from the hallway. He crept into the living room. Nothing unusual. Until he noticed the display shelf. Every Labubu figure had moved. The 8 originals now stood outside their cases, arranged in a ring around the 9th one. His stomach turned. This wasn't possible. The cases had been sealed. He rushed to them. None were broken. None even looked tampered with. He checked his door, then his windows. Locked. No signs of entry. Mason carefully placed the 8 back inside their cases and left the 9th on the coffee table. He didn't sleep again. 2 days later, The 9th doll remained where he left it, but the drawings began. He first noticed them on a notepad beside his bed. Forests, dense and crooked, sharp black trees, a single clearing. He didn't remember sketching them. The next day, more appeared. One showed a tall hill under a crooked moon. Another, a hollow tree with something peeking from within. Every image included the same tiny silhouette, a Labubu doll standing in the clearing. That night, he set up a camera facing the shelf. What he saw the next morning made his blood run cold. At 2:47 a.m., he was seen entering the frame. He stood motionless for several minutes, just staring at the shelf. Then he began to open each case. One by one, he removed the dolls. He placed them again in the circle around the 9th. Finally, he sat on the floor in the center and stared forward, unmoving. For 2 hours, he had no memory of it. Mason started staying out of the apartment, sleeping in his car, visiting cafes to use their Wi-Fi instead of his own. But no matter where he went, the sketches kept appearing. Once, he opened his laptop to find the desktop background had changed to a forest image. One he didn't recognize, but that matched his drawings perfectly. He tried researching the 9th doll, Reddit, collector forums, niche archive sites. Nothing. No listing. No fan-made customs that matched. Until one anonymous user messaged him privately. User 64392. You have one too? Mason stared at the screen. Mason, what do you mean? User 64392. The 9th. It shows up when you complete the set. It finds you. Mason, what is it? User 64392. Do you hear the music yet? Mason didn't reply. The account vanished seconds later. He tried burning the doll. He wrapped it in newspaper, lit it in a metal bin on his fire escape. It shriveled, blackened, melted eyes and stuffing. He poured water on the ash and flushed it. He returned inside. The doll was on the shelf, pristine. The 8 others were again in the circle. Mason screamed, throwing them all across the room. The dolls bounced against the walls. One landed on its face. He ran into the bathroom and locked the door, shivering. That night, the scratching began. Tiny taps, dozens of them, as if small hands were brushing against the door. When he opened it in the morning, the dolls were seated around the toilet. A week later, Mason was gone. His landlord reported a foul smell. The police found the apartment in disarray. Scattered sketchbooks, hundreds of drawings of the same twisted forest. The dolls were gone, all 9. But in the back of the closet, officers found a false wall panel. Behind it, a narrow crawl space. Inside was a single hand-drawn map, pinned with nails. It led to a forest, a real one, a small stretch of protected land in rural Maine, off-limits to hikers, known locally as the Silent Glen. Police searched it. They found no Mason, no dolls, but the trees in the clearing, just as his sketches had shown, were bent, forming a perfect ring, and in the center was a child's shoe.